It is true. The rumors are true, and I don't even know if there were any rumors going around, but it is true. I was 23 years old when I first shaved my face. I just can't grow facial hair. I just can't. And the reason that came up is because in my shower before I came here, yes, I do shower. I just do. And when I was in there, I was shaving and I just realized like I don't have much coverage on my face, and I probably do it once a week, I'd say. And it does look like I'm about 13 or 14 by the time it gets to the day that I'm going to shave. But I was just feeling it out, and I just realized like this hasn't been something that I've been doing for a very long time. So every time I do it, it doesn't feel very automatic, because I know people who have to shave every single day, shave their face, that is. And for them, it's like part of their daily routine. But the day that I have to shave, it's kind of like washing my hair. It's not something I do every day, but when I do it, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's right, I have to do that. And I don't have a natural sequencing yet. Like when I brush my teeth, I do pretty much the same movement every time. But with my face, yeah, it's just not the same. So anyway, I was 23 when I did that. So that means I've been shaving for about 4 or 5 years. And I went through puberty, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's a weird fact about me. And, I think now that my eczema is flaring up a little bit, and I do shave around that area where I do have quite a bit of eczema, I do have to think about it quite a bit more. And I do love showering, and I love being clean, but it really irritates my skin. So for those of you who are just like, I can't be bothered cleaning, and I can't be bothered doing my shower and stuff, just selfish. You get to go shower whenever, and we're just like, I feel like wasting time, I'm going to go shower. I wish I could do that. Anyway, what's been going on? What has been going on? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and every other time that could possibly exist. And if you're listening to this in the future, we welcome you too, and we hope that this whole pandemic sorts itself out. So you just let us know, and we'll get into it. But so there's been quite a bit going on. This has been a hectic week. It's been a hectic fortnight, really. I've been all over the place. I've been all over the place in my mind as well as physically. Going through so many transitions, going through so many moments of change, you could say. I'm going through so many evolving periods, and I am changing my physical space, changing my mental space, and just trying to get in tune with who I am spiritually again. And I think, your spirituality kind of unfolds itself depending on what light you put yourself in, and that light is the environment that you surround yourself with, and those being people, those being the physical environment, as well as work strands as well. A lot of that stuff is very important. But this is the last episode for a while that I'm going to be in Dunedin. I'm heading away to Wellington shortly, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But, just one day I want to feel free. I want to feel like this brain that I'm in is cooperating with me, and I want to feel like, we're on the same level, and we're working towards just a greater space in my mind for me to operate from. It's getting tough. It's getting pretty tough, and I just want to be as free as this guy that I saw biking home last night, just in the cycle lane, no hands on the bike, and just swaying his head so hard. In terms of balance, I don't think it's very efficient to be doing that, but I can just tell you're so free, and he was just singing and just feeling it. And what freedom that must be, just riding with not a worry in the world. There are cars going by him, but he's still just, he's in his own element. He's in a flow state, and he's just focusing on what he needs to focus on, because if he doesn't, then it could be bad news. So he's just free. He's letting the wind blow through his hair. He's just letting, whatever air, whatever thing he's feeling, he's just feeling it. He's feeling it out. And he has to be in touch with everything that he's involved with, because that's what keeps him going. But yeah, that's the sort of freedom I'm after. And I think in terms of the environment that we're in, there's a lot of cool things happening. And I think these are the types of things that gives you purpose and makes you feel like your job or everything that you've been doing, if you are working towards these sorts of things, that's when you're starting to see change and feel like, there is purpose again. There is a reason for doing what you do. There is a reason for taking a stand in the things that you believe in, because they start to play out and they start to be seen everywhere. No matter how much backlash you get, if it's something you truly believe in, and you push towards it, there is some wiggle room for change, right? Not everything is stagnant. And where I see that more is that I've been watching a lot of rugby, the NPC, and just seeing a lot of the amount of te reo Māori being used by the commentators. It's amazing. I remember maybe not even 5 years ago when people's names were being butchered every day, and it was like to say kia ora, to say no mai hoki mai, to say taranaki, waikato, to say those sorts of things. It was unheard of. It's always taranaki, it's always waikato. But now they're really making an effort. And I remember this conversation, and I have spoken about it on this podcast before, but I had a friend who, could speak a little bit of Māori, not too much. She was Māori, and she identified as Māori, obviously. And she, that was around the time where people were starting to use a bit more Māori, on the news. And maybe they weren't perfect, but they were giving it a go. And I think it's the intent. It's listening to it and knowing that they're giving it a really good go. So, these people, this is their second language, right? We laugh at people who come and speak other languages and come to us and have some sort of accent. We laugh at them. But now it's your turn, you English-speaking folk, to learn the national language here, and you will get it wrong sometimes. But if you give it a really good go, and you know that everyone's here to support you, then keep going. It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. And especially, I think it does bigger things than just being able to, learn a bit of Māori, which is the native language of this country, Aotearoa, which is now known as New Zealand. But what it does is it actually restores a lot of the spiritual aspect for those people who had language taken away from them. And it's not just a language, it's part of a culture. And that culture is the makeup of a lot of people here. That culture is something that is now missing. And we only see, and a lot of people who see it are only seeing language as this one thing in a silo, but that language is actually something, part of a bigger scheme of who that person is, who that individual is, who these communities are, and who we were as a nation. So the conversation around using kia ora, it's more than just the word kia ora. It's the reason behind it. It's the essence. It's the ora, order, health. It's the well-being that it gives people when you're able to do that. So yeah, I just think for all you narrow-minded folk, and for all of you listening who are more on board with it, and you talk to other people about it, and they do have that strong view about it, just think that things don't come in silos, and it's not forcing anyone to do anything. And if they want to talk about forcing people to do stuff, just remember the colonizers were the first people to force something upon someone else. So just when they use history, make sure that they're using all of the history. Righty, so and also on that, a lot of people using those platforms to be able to talking about going and get vaccinated, and I'm pro-vax. Always have been pro-vax, and being a man of science and being friends with a lot of people who are in science, and just seeing, just being able to read evidence, I think really, really helps. But something we were talking about the other day with a bunch of my friends who also doing their PhDs or have their PhDs in microbiology, and we're just saying, imagine one day if the conspiracy theorists were right. If everything that we ever thought, they are bugging us, and it is going to be like 1984. Imagine if that all came right. You know what I would do? I'd put my tinfoil hat on and do a whole bunch of nothing, because that's not going to happen. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. I love you all, and we're going to get into this. All right. So this week, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about having fun. And the reason why I want to talk about having fun is because I think I had it wrong. I used to think that having fun was just doing things that wasn't work, but a lot of stuff that you do that isn't work isn't necessarily fun. Right? Being social for the sake of being social is not fun for me. That idea of going and hanging out with people and doing dates and doing all that sort of stuff, that's tiring for me. And I'm thinking about having fun and what types of things I should do, and just reconnecting with that childhood self of mine. The person who could keep himself entertained doing a whole bunch of things just out of curiosity. So trying to find that exploration within myself again. And I think before we get into this, it's something that we should all think about, and what can we do to actually add a bit more fun into our lives. And I know what you're going to say is the first thing is, I don't have time to have fun. And like my dean at school used to say, if you're bored, you are boring. So because there's always things that you can do everywhere. And there's always things that you can do to kind of take up that time. And I guess now that our attention spans are about the size of an ant, there are a lot more things that we have to do, and there are so many things that we can explore. And I guess I'm talking from a place of privilege right now, because I'm able to still travel around this part of the country. So for those of you who are locked up, like, I do really, really empathize with you all. And going through lockdown is difficult, and I think there are things that you can find to do in that time, but I just hope, I keep my fingers crossed that we all get out at some point. And I do know, and I don't want to be a pessimist or anything, but I do think we will be going back into lockdown sometime soon. So I'm trying to just, move a few things around and trying to have as much fun as possible, because it has been a really hard month. Actually, no, it's been a hard year. This has been a really, really hard year for me, and it's getting harder, but I'm seeing a lot of silver linings. And these silver linings is the fun that I want to talk about today. But just, that supermarket stuff. So I just brought that up as like a weird little segue just into it. I like to tell a story at the beginning of every podcast, and I did that one. And when I shared it, the amount of people who came back to me, and it was usually like my Māori or Pacific friends, saying that this is an issue that they have a lot of the time, and they go around and they just feel like they're being profiled. Now, I don't want to say that everyone's racist, but I do think there are still those ideas that everything is still being played out like that way. And we talk about New Zealand, and this is not us, New Zealand, but we still call ourselves New Zealand. We still find it hard for people to say kia ora. We still find it hard to see why we should have equity, and people see equality as like the ultimate goal in the end, rather than equity. Just hints of racism. And on top of that, the types of people who are saying what they're saying about, the not being able to go shopping, or feeling uncomfortable when they go shopping because they're scared that they're going to be, accused of shoplifting. It just came up so often. And I don't know if that's people just agreeing with me because of the way that I did, but, when I used to, back in the day, I had been pulled up so many times. I talked about in the racism episode that I came home, or I went to a class, and I wasn't even there in that class that they were talking about, and I was taken out for questioning about a phone that had gone missing, and it was a class that I hadn't even been in. This stuff happens. It happens all the time. And if people want us to function or operate and feel like we are safe here, how are we meant to when that sort of thing's going on? So those are things that my friends who are supposed to be allies need to think about. My friends who don't believe in racism need to be aware of. This is stuff that plays out, and this is stuff that keeps people trapped. That keeps people trapped when they're starting to think about, how they could go about life. They don't know any other way to go about life, because this is just the life that they become accustomed to. So we're just all products of our environment, and if our environment taught us to believe that, then obviously we're either going to continuously perpetuate it because you think that that's the way to be, or we're going to continually live in fear because we know that's something that continues to happen to us. So yeah, that was just one fun anecdote about the supermarket that I realized actually triggered a lot of people, because it's something it's a bit more real than just it going off and then them coming over to check. I feel like there's possibly a little bit more vigilant. They're a bit more vigilant towards people who look like me, and not the handsome type. I'm just talking people who tan as easily as I do, and get as swole as easily as I do, and have really, really cool tattoos. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I just went off tangent. Doing things to help. So the fun that I'm talking about are things to help my mind declutter. I know a lot of people like to clean, and that's all cool, but like, what are the fun things? That's a fun thing at the end of it. Maybe during it, it's not too fun because you're actually working, but at the end of it and during it, it's something that you're mastering a new skill, or you're taking yourself out of the environment so that you can actually cleanse your body. And I'm not talking like homeopathy or anything like that. I'm talking about like physically getting out of a space that is filled with toxicity, or was filled with your own toxicity because you built so much negativity around what you were doing that you're pretty much bathing in that negativity. So I like to always think about the idea of stillness, and like for me to be properly still, if you think about when you're in the pool, I don't know if any of you used to do this. I used to go to the pool by myself all the time, so I would explore different things, but I would just sit there and just try to be as still as possible. So when you're moving, you can feel the force of the water, because obviously the water is heavier for humans than air. So when we're going through it, we can feel how slow we're moving. But if you just stay still enough, it feels like there is no water around you. So that's the sort of area we need to get into to be able to observe everything that is going on around us. Because if you're always feeling the turbulence of everything because you're moving so fast, or because you're never letting yourself calm down, nothing is going to ever come still, and you're not really going to be able to find the path that it is that you need to go on for stillness. Right? Because if we're always moving in turbulence, we have to react to that turbulence. But if you finally find stillness, you can actually see, oh, wow, it's not as bad as we thought it was. But the further and further into the chaos you get, the more your mind becomes accustomed to chaos and only sees chaos. So what do I do to get still? And this is the perfect place. I went to Te Anau. And I also went to Queenstown because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to come back and bathe in that negativity like I was talking about before. But the stillness that we get, that is the key of everything. I think when you're really trying to become intuitive with what it is you are doing, you need to be still. You need to actually feel how you are feeling in that moment, or how you are feeling overall, rather than how you are reacting to a situation. So obviously how you react is going to be dependent on the mindset that you are in before you react. So recently I've just been fucking shutting everything down. I've been so mean, I've been so mad, I've been so angry, I've been just an asshole. And there's plenty of reason. There's been so many things that have built me up to just shutting everything down and just being so snappy and actually being so disgusting, really, in how I've been. And that's just because everyone is fucking me off. So many people just expect so much of me, and so many people just want this, want that, want this, but no one actually cares about me. And I thought that maybe I was just being, I was just saying this, and I was thinking that it was all about me because I'm self-centered, all that sort of thing. But when I, properly laid it out, that's all everyone's ever expected of me, because I do so well, and I find it hard to say no. But when I do things for these people, it seems like I'm highly functional. But just like I can't always be there for people. I can't always be there for you if you need me. And if you feel like you're entitled to my time, you have something wrong with you. And if you think that I'm only going to be there to help you, then I don't know why that's coming up. Right? So it's happening over and over and over again. And it's not just in personal life. So I'm meaning like at work. And the more that I tell people that this stuff is going on, and that, I need to do this and I need to prepare for this, for that, they're just like, oh yeah. But then as soon as something bothers them and that they need something done, it's like, they just like totally flip and they have all the attention towards me. So it's just like, why are people so stuck in their own heads? So anyway, I needed to get away from all of this because this was totally killing me, to the point where I'm moving out of my flat because everyone knows that my living situation there is a fucking shit show. So I'm leaving there to actually get some clarity, to actually be able to enjoy my living situation. And I'm going to I think I'm going to talk more about that shortly, because when I would talk to people about it, a lot of people, it's just like the relationship thing. When people are like, well, if you're so unhappy, why don't you leave? It's not that easy, right? It's not that easy. There's a lot of things that people need to consider before you just go and do something like that. And one of them for me was just finances. I couldn't afford to go do that. But now I just got past that point. I saved up enough money so that I can go do that, because I can't, what's a few more $100 per week than just like me actually thinking that I'm just going to fucking end it, I would rather spend that money, not worry about my savings just for now, just till the end of the year, so that I can just keep it together, right? Because this affects how I am with so many different people. But anyway, I think this is a great example of why I got away, and now I'm reflecting on it, and it's actually making me mad. I got away so that I could get the stillness that I was talking about. So anyway, I went to Te Anau, and I went to Te Anau and I went to Queenstown, and they required me to drive, further than about 2.5, 3 hours away from Dunedin. And you just realize that the world is not Dunedin. And Dunedin is so small, and so many people know everything that's going on. And when you get away, you're insignificant. As soon as you leave there, no one knows who you are. No one's asking you for anything. When you're where you are, I'm asking people for stuff. Their services, I don't know where anything is, so I go in and I'm fresh. I go in and I'm treated as the person who was in front of them. I'm not treated as this person that people know this about me, people know that. So I got to go away, and it was just beautiful. I mean, my first day that I was there, the sun was beaming. The mountains had snow on the tip of them. It just looked like a painting. It looked like when your TV goes onto screensaver and you can see the different landscapes. And to know that was just outside my door, it was the meditator's dream. I didn't wear my headphones while I was outside. I got to listen to everything. And then we took beach chairs down to the beach, which is around this lake. And I just chilled and I got to see everything, and it was clear. That was physical clarity from like the environment, but also I got clarity for myself that I had been in Dunedin way too long, and there were so many things that I hadn't dealt with for myself. And people say, do things for yourself, and I try to, but I just don't because, I think I'm handling it, but I definitely was not handling it the way I should. So I'm really looking forward to getting away again. And then when we went over to Queenstown, it was really cool again because we got to just do, you don't have to spend too much time there, but it's just so picturesque. It's honestly like just the views, the water, the food. We just ate everything, had a few drinks, and just celebrated. I guess I passed my PhD and everything was finalized, and we're going to be doing, that's done. It's done. And I was so stressed out that I couldn't even think about it. I couldn't even celebrate properly because, I just feel like everyone wanted this in me, everyone wanted that in me, but like no one actually was there to celebrate me. So I needed to get away and just do something for myself, and I did it. And it was amazing. It was, it was so good. And I just remember staying at both of the places. And I don't know if any of you did this while you were younger or even now. I think I've always come from a place of like knowing I don't have too much money. So when I go to these different places, and like I'm getting paid to do all this, and I go to these different places and I'm like, fuck, these are so flash. Like I want to stay up and I want to play with all the switches. I want to open all the doors. I want to do everything. I want to use all the features that this thing has because, it's so expensive. I need to make my money's worth. So the next day you're always so tired, but you're like, yeah, I got my money's worth out of that. And I was always like that with food as well. So when we go to Valentine's, I'd always, if we paid this much for all you can eat, I need to get at least that much in return by eating a lot. And it's a weird mindset to have, but that's just, classic scarcity mindset where you just never really had much, so you want to make the most of when you do have it. But getting away was so good for me. I'm so glad that I did it. And I know some of you aren't going to be able to have that sort of luxury. But if you can just spend time with yourself and just getting away from everything else that's going on and take a proper stock take of where you're at and start to figure out what it is that you can do to hopefully start to feel like you are in control of things again. Because I definitely started letting I started letting the negative emotions that I had of the different places. For example, like every time I went home, I had to hide because I didn't want to see people because those people make me mad. And when they make me mad, then I act a certain way. Or when I know that they're out there, so I can't actually live in my house, that frustrates me. So there was no real place for me to go hide. And that was when I really realized that I was living in constant anger. And then I was probably mad to anyone who just wanted help, like maybe just wanted to see me or just wanted to care for me, but I pushed those people away because I thought that they also just didn't understand. It's been a hard time. It's been a really, really hard time, but having that time away to be able to reflect and just think on things and having the drive as well, being able to drive both ways was really a good time for me to be in my own head. And now that I'm moving houses and I'm starting to move stuff. This episode I actually stopped moving stuff between the two houses and came in to record this real quick. So you're so lucky. I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss an episode because I know that as soon as I miss one, I can go 2, I can go 3, and then who knows? I'll never have this podcast again. It's been more of a catch up, but I think finding stillness. Stillness is what I would say everyone should try and do at least a moment per day. And if that's, upon waking, just before going to sleep, but just find a spot where you can be by yourself and your thoughts. Like I've said before, if you think about water and the sediment on the bottom, if you keep throwing rocks into that, it's just going to muddy the water. And until you actually stop throwing the rocks into that spot, the water's never actually going to be clear enough for you to see through what's going on. So if you're trying to make decisions when you're in this position of just feeling overwhelmed, a lot of those decisions are really going to be, they're probably going to be from a place of defense or place of scarcity, where you're thinking, I don't have this, I'm out of control, and I make this impulse sort of decision, rather than something that is probably going to serve you for the long term. I can't tell you exactly how to do that. What I ended up doing was running away, but running away with purpose. I didn't forget everything that was happening back home. I moved away just briefly, just for a few days, just to really gauge what was going on. And feel where it is that I need to move, and feel, what it is that I can continue with and what can't I continue with. When you're in it, when you're in the different things that you're talking about, so when I went to the office and I started talking about work things that I can and can't do, you're probably more likely to be persuaded by the people you're talking to or you're surrounded with. You're going to be like, oh, but it isn't that bad. Oh, and you just end up fucking yourself because you're just saying to yourself, no, that's fine. You can carry on with this abuse. Say it's abuse. My office isn't abusive. I've just used that as an example. But when you do get away and you realize you can live without these things, or these things continue to exist without you, then you start to feel less pressure to say yes to those sorts of things. So I think those are things that we should probably keep in mind for all of this. And something else I need to keep in mind, and it's been stressing me out this whole time, is I'm going back to Wellington for 2 weeks, and there's a whole host of different events in my family. But the first one that's coming up at the end of this week is my dad's wedding. So my dad has been with this woman since I was 12, so about 16 years, and they're going to get married. And I'm the best man, and I'm meant to say a speech. And I've known about this since about January, since the last time I was in Wellington. My dad asked me, and I said yes, and he said, can you do a speech, blah, 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 blah. Now, I come on here, and I talk shit for about almost an hour, if I'm with a guest, or just over half an hour if I'm by myself. And this is tough. This is really difficult. I've tried jotting some things down. I've tried having some ideas, but I think because it has to be so concise, this is a one-time thing. This is one event, and they're not going to get another one. That's putting the pressure on. I can present in front of people, I can lecture, I can do all those sorts of things, but I have the opportunity to correct later on if I have to. So yeah, writing that down has been difficult, and I have written so many different drafts. So hopefully shortly something settles in. I think it will just happen. But yeah, I am working on that. And if anyone has any tips for what makes a really good best man speech, let me know. I definitely only want to be up for like 5 minutes. I don't want to take the spotlight, and I don't want to make it about things that are not the wedding. I want to celebrate the love, because I think that's what you're meant to do. But the last thing I want is it to be about me. Obviously, you should be like that. And where do we stand on people who propose at someone else's wedding? Where do we stand? I stand offside, and I just say, no, that's not the thing to do, but it's up to you. You just decide. What do you think? Cool. That's been this episode for this week, and just something I want to keep in mind, and for those who haven't sought stillness and thinking about the motivation that you have right now, and probably it's from a place of chaos. When I get out of this lockdown, I'm going to do this. When I get out of this lockdown, I'm going to do that. Just from a few things that I've seen from motivated people, especially myself, just being one of those motivated people. And one of the most common mistakes we make is that when you're operating from a place of chaos as opposed to a place of clarity, which is that stillness that we get, you tend to make a lot of promises to yourself that seem great at the time, and when you're motivated, they kill. But then when things start to fall away and you're not actually doing as well, you lose that integrity with yourself. So every time you make a promise to yourself, every time you deliver on that promise, you build that integrity with yourself. Every time you don't do something that you promised yourself, you start to have, trust issues with how it is that you can set goals for yourself because you're not achieving those goals that you said. When you are motivated is a fleeting feeling, and motivation can kind of come and go whenever it wants to, right? When you're feeling motivated, you fucking kill it. You're like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, that's me, bam, 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 bam. But after you lose that motivation and you still have those goals, you start to run on a thing called willpower. And this is like you're changing fuel sources, but willpower is kind of that grind, whereas motivation, you're floating on butterflies. So with that in mind, we do know from data that the people who focus on more habits at once are so much less efficient at doing what they do. And in terms of the completion rate of their different habits that they do, it starts to decrease with the more activities that you start to add. So be kind to yourself, be super self-compassionate with all of this sort of stuff, but also operate from a place of clarity. Before you start to set these, start to think about how it is, like what position you are in right now. Think about your social career, your social life, your career, your family. Start to think about what your actual values are, and do these match all of those different things. And I think this is something that I need to go into further because the closer we get to summer, the more people are going to ask me about getting fit for summer. And that's my first tip to you, is to really think about the different things that you're saying you're going after and be realistic. Is this something that you can see yourself sticking with? And if not, maybe there's something that we should keep in mind for that, because you don't want to lose that integrity with yourself. Because if you lose that integrity with yourself, you lose that trust in yourself, and then you start to believe that you are one of those people who just doesn't work hard enough, or who's lazy and all that sort of stuff, when really you just had a lapse in judgment and it didn't work for you in that moment. But those moments go, and you can always build up from there. So remember to keep that in mind. Thank you all for listening to me rant for over a half an hour. I hope you took some gold from that. But anyway, I'll be in Wellington next time you hear my voice. So if I sound sexier, you know why. I'm really glad I came in. Thank you so much for being there with me. And reach out to me if you need anything. Love you all. Ka kite anō.